was supposed to do that presentation 2 weeks ago, but I was actually embarrassed. Really? Yeah. And I had it all prepared for that for 2 weeks, and surprisingly, my parents called me and asked me to join them on Paris. And then I came back from Paris, looked at my presentation again, and I really didn't like it, so I scrapped it home and did a new one, which is a lot influenced by my time in Paris.
Oh.
In the last day in Paris, I was in the Louvre museum, really big museum. And my favorite exhibition in every museum is always the archaeology. Especially in archaeology, Egypt and Greece. And as I walked through the exhibitions, I noticed something very clear. In ancient times, when knowledge was great and people were developing, the art at that time reflects it. You can see a lot of parallels between austerity and techniques in art. And then I realized it's also true for medicine. In time of austerity, we can see better medicine, better developments, more accurate, more scientific. So I started to try to find a connection between the two. First question that I asked myself, is medicine in our nature or in our culture? Is it encoded in our genes to help one another, to treat the sick? Or is it something cultural that happens only in certain cases? And I did some research about that as well. The first example for medicine in nature I found in elephants. I love watching nature documentaries, especially BBC and stuff. And in a movie called Born to be Wild, they were speaking about an orphanage for elephants, where they had 2 stages of treating the elephants. First stage was treating the really baby elephants by human carers, playing with them, feeding them, helping them. Second stage of elephant rehabilitation was bring them to a reserve, where older elephants adopt them and treat them and help them to adapt to natural life. The more I read about elephants, I found out that they have consciousness about death. They know when a member of the pack is sick, they know when it dies, and each time they pass a corpse of an elephant, they stop, pay respect, and continue. They are conscious about that. The second animal that I found that has the concept of medicine are chimpanzees.
What do you think about that?
Relatives. 98% of them does.
Okay.
And they also have the habit of giving food to sick members of their pack. They groom each other to remove ticks and other things. They also adopt orphans. So I started thinking, okay, so maybe taking care of the weak is part of our nature as well. And you can also see that in other cultures, even cultures, human cultures that were separated for millennia from one another with no interaction, each one of them formed some kind of medicine, even though they're different bases, different things, they form medicine. And then I came to the question of the lecture. What is the relationship between history and medicine? In my thought, they influence each other. It's not just history influences medicine, medicine also influences history. You can see this by the plagues that were in Europe, devastated half the population of Europe, but they made a change. You can see it nowadays, each time there is a new epidemic, how the world changes. One of the main concern of our society is our epidemics. That has changed our way of life, our way of thinking. So let's go back to ancient Egypt. This is the place where medical knowledge, we can say, was pretty much born. It starts about 3,000 years BC. First indications of real medicine. In excavation, they made throughout Egypt, they found texts containing medical textbooks, real medical textbooks with prognosis and diagnosis and treatments. For example, Edward Papyrus or the Adam Smith Papyrus were actually had real known remedies and conditions that you can apply today as well. The Egyptians had vast knowledge about anatomy. They knew where every organ was placed in the body. They knew how to access the brain without damaging the exterior of the skull. Going through the nose. They knew their anatomy. The first known surgeries were performed in Egypt about 2500 BC. And we can see in hieroglyphs, we can see the drawing, the curved drawings of surgical instruments. At the same time, in another place in Babylonia, we also see development of medicine. And in one text they discovered called the Diagnostic Handbook. It was written by King Apli in Babylonia in about 1000 BC. Also have already the ideas of diagnosis, of checking the patient, of reaching the conclusion and the treatment for that disease. Even though part of the medicine here is spiritual, is religious, it's praying, giving amulets, big part of it is scientific. By observing the patient, learning the anatomy, learning the causes, and bringing to life remedies to it. And we can also see that I'll come back to a parallel of art versus medicine versus history all the time. This is a statue from 2500 BC. It's a perfect face. It's anatomically correct. It's fine-tuned. They knew how the body works, how the body looks.
Michelangelo.
We'll go a bit forward in history. Greece and Roman times. The Greeks, actually a lot of medical knowledge received from the Egyptians. They opened the university in Alexandria. They studied in the Egyptian universities about the medical knowledge. They also took a lot of medications, a lot of the surgical techniques of the Egyptians. Hippocrates lived in the second half of the 1st century BC, first millennium BC, which we all consider the father of modern medicine, with his ideas about endemic, chronic, or acute disease. A lot of the terms we use today studied in Egypt, part of his life. A person named Herophilus also made great advances in anatomy and physiology, understanding the concept of brain, what the brain does, the nervous system, the venous system, arterial system. They really advanced that technology and medicine. And their contemporaries, let's say the Roman person was individual, each one had to take care of himself. The Romans built the first public health system by creating public baths to keep the hygiene, building the first public toilets to maintain the population healthy. Their surgeon had their own kits. The Roman surgeon used to walk around with his tools of work. These are surgical tools discovered in Pompeii.
Good morning.
But still, most of the knowledge was still based on Greek and, of course, Egyptian. We can also see that in the art of that time. Further, Roman and Greek statues are the most splendid statues there are. They are perfect human beings. They knew exactly where everything is, where every muscle, every vein, everything. Their knowledge of the human body was vast. And you can see that in their art, in their expression. And then the Roman Empire fell, knowledge was lost or misplaced. It wasn't common. No great advances were made in understanding the human body, understanding disease, and what we should do with it. There was a very heavy religious influence that was coming from the place of helplessness. They didn't know what to do, they turned to religion. Miracles, acts of God. A lot of the medicine in that time was praying, or amulets, or relics that they found everywhere that had therapeutic properties. Plagues like the Black Plague, leprosy were common, were scary, were terrifying. And yet, no one made advances of what to do with it. In the end of the medieval ages, towards Renaissance, we can see the start of change. The concept of hospitals is created in France, where at first hospitals were actually hostels for travelers. But slowly they changed their nature into places where sick people came to seek remedy by monks or nuns. And slowly we start going out of the Dark Ages and regaining knowledge that was lost. We can see in the art of the time that paintings mostly present the human body as disfigured. People are ugly in the pictures. They are ugly, they are not beautiful, they are not anatomically correct. They are ugly, they are suffering. The knowledge of how a skeleton looks is completely wrong. Basic stuff that people used to know on an everyday basis was gone. Then we come to Renaissance age. There's a big reform in the church. The study of science is allowed again.
Okay.
People are seeking answers. The human body, the human form is coming back to the center of the game. People are interested in how it works, start seeing it as a model to inspire to. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and hundreds of others are learning the human body, learning real life anatomy, dissecting bodies to study where the muscles are, where the veins are, how it works. The anatomy drawings of Leonardo da Vinci are one of my favorite things in art ever. They're beautiful and they are textbook correct. The ideas of Greek and Rome and Egypt are getting revisited again, checking their accuracy, doubting them, starting to learn more and more about how divine works and later on how disease works. As we move on to the centuries, we go into the Industrial Revolution and all the technological advances that we have today. We understand more and more knowledge and human beings are the center of life. And then we come to modern medicine. Nowadays, past, let's say 150 years, where science, medical science, is actually a bit divided, let's say, in my opinion. From one hand, we have pure science. We can read DNA, we can start to understand even what DNA says. We understand more and more about the fine mechanisms of biology, of human life, physics, of stuff that we never thought we could understand. We have this whole field of things that we don't know. How the brain works, how the mind works, what's the process of thinking, dreaming, everything. That's where psychology comes in. Trying to understand things that we can't now explain scientifically or pure scientifically. And that's where I think art as well represents that. Painting by Salvador Dali. On one hand, on one hand, it's very accurate with his paintbrushes. It's pinpoint, it's beautiful, it's accurate, it's sharp. On the other hand, the imagery and the concept of the painting is completely insane. It's concept that we can't explain by science, but we all know it. Can figure out what it means by just thinking about it. And I think that's where medical science is today. On one hand, we have all the things that we can't explain and know and sure about. On the other hand, we open this great door of psychology, where it's things that we can't explain completely. And that's where we are today. And that's how I think history can be reflected by medicine and art, and vice versa. They explain each other, and they are the common thing that we have to explain what's going on. Questions?
Ninja, perfect.